okay. He said he was going to tune in through Facebook, but just to let him know. Is that okay? Yeah, good, you're texting. Okay. All right, so the clay, thank you for waiting. Thank you for being here. This means so much to me. So I just want to point out the first pottery piece that I just want to highlight, which is the pit fire that some of you smell. Jamie, you let me know that you smell in the air. I never thought that horse manure could smell so good. But that's what I used in this pit fire for that first bowl that's black and red. And it's hand built and it's molded. And I'll talk a little bit about like what my process was and yeah, what my focus was. But I just wanted to highlight that, just like, yeah, as the first piece. So this time here has been rewarding for me, especially the last 2 weeks when all I could do was be here as much as possible when I learned that my time was ending today. It took a lot of people to get me to this very spot. Some of them are volunteers that are running the pantry when I'm not there, which is the nonprofit that I direct. My mom's understanding for me not being there as much, my brother's help, and so many other people. So just to kind of frame what brought me here, I want to just read a short excerpt of the residency proposal that I wrote for STARworks. I am interested in pursuing a few different ideas as part of a STARworks residency in the clay department. I intend to work with growing and hand building tools such as pottery and clay making. As I explore these populations, talking about ancient populations, use of clay making, I am also observing what other ethnic groups might have used clay to make, such as the Moravians, first settlers from Europe, and what evolution of clay making and what ethnic groups influenced the use, structure, and development of clay making. I was also very interested in the enslaved peoples and what might have been made from their hands. I imagine this journey will take 3 different phases over the course of 9 months. So this is what was in the proposal because I had no idea that a residency was only 3. So I laid out what each phase was going to be. The first phase, however, the first 3 months, was going to curate different experiences with clay to learn the spirit, the essence, and the property of clay and clay making. This phase is to give a beginner, a novice such as myself, the introduction of clay, not just as material, but as a being. There's a spiritual element of clay making that I am also exploring by specifying which clay making into the historical categories of ancestors, natives, and other types of experiences and encompasses of people that might have used clay. So some of these include throwing, hand building, creative writing, dancing, smelling, helping to create clay in the factory, seeing where clay is mined, and other tactile and sensual methods of experiencing clay. I am proud to say that those goals mostly were accomplished. The whole time that I have been here, Takaro has assured me that I didn't need to write anything, I didn't need to present anything, that this wasn't school, it was a learning field, a place to experiment without expectations. And yet, for me, as a performer and as a professional student, I couldn't end an experience without expressing it somehow. And I've been waiting for this particular moment. So thank you again for being here. Even though I was able to complete many goals, not everything was accomplished. So last week, literally, when I learned I had 8 more days here of the residency, I asked Takaro, I pleaded with him to let me stay a bit longer. And his response, after a few back and forth, was, time is time. Those words caught me to the point that I forgot my regular MO of negotiating and weaving in just a little bit more and coming back with another rebuttal. Instead, I paused and surprisingly agreed. Nothing that I had ever done before in my negotiating tactics. Yes, time is time, I thought to myself. Thank you, Takaro. We parted ways, and I went back to my studio space and just sat. I felt the heaviness of those words, Time is time. Thinking of my dad passing and being there in that hospital room during his last breath, I thought about Takaro's words. Time is time. And then thinking of my mom's journey, of her tumor in her head and her surgery saying that it needs to be removed, and me again thinking of mortality. Time is time. Thinking of me moving on from this place, from STARworks, where I had so many dreams, so many aspirations, and yet it is ending when I was just getting started. Time is time. I wanted to cry, but instead I breathed. What if this was a moment to let go instead of a moment to hold on to? What if that was the lesson that this residency needed to teach me? What if it really had nothing to do with clay, but clay was the medium in which I needed to be taught? I wanted to let the emotions of the sadness hold on to me, but if I did, I risked not being able to do any more clay making. You see, I'm quite emotional. And when I get stuck on one emotion, I allow it to take me away. And that perhaps makes me a good creator in some aspects, but it can also leave me quite debilitated and stuck if left unchecked and not managed well. The negative emotions can take me away from a good path into a whole deep world of depression. So instead of letting the tears come from defeat, I allowed the breath to come to give life. I breathed. I slowly began to practice the coiling that Ryan, my resident peer, had just shown me, and molding the bowl that Katie had taken time to help me smooth out and taught me how to coil some more. Just the weekend before, I had just shared with Janny and Victor during the wood firing that we did as a team that fire was healing for me, that I wanted to be there in the exact moment, looking at the fire, feeling the heat, and letting my mind wander with possibilities of what could be, and allowing the deep pain that I have held on to for so long seep up and be burned by the flames, and replaced by the coals of the fire that would nurture something new that I know would emerge. I shared with the two of them that in talking with my therapist, I understood that grief was something that I struggled to be partners in life with. I had just identified with my therapist just that morning that fire helps me go through what I could not let go of. Grief is a theme in my life that is taking a front seat for me to understand, not to judge or push away. So when Takaro said, time is time, and I was sitting at my studio seat breathing, I saw it as an opportunity to allow grief and to allow the feelings of sadness to take root into something that would help discover new things about life that clay making could offer me. To observe what I did with that. I could do that to myself. I can make it an intentional choice that would help me move through the grief that I held on to, perhaps the new grief that will come. And this clay residency was starting to teach me that. Joy, you can go to Sawtooth. He didn't say it like that. This is Takaro talking, but this is my impersonation of if you were a black woman, this is how we would say it. You could go there and take classes. I don't want you to be sad. You can keep going. You don't have to stop. Takaro says to me as I try to share my feelings, because I'm thinking that's a part of the process, but I wasn't communicating very well. So I just got to the point. Do you ever cry, Takaro? I asked him. At this point, we were both standing in my studio space, and I was going over my projects and sharing with him my chalkboard that I had created to keep track of my thoughts and trying to organize my last days on what to accomplish. I had been trying to make as much work as possible and was feeling frustrated, even defeated that I couldn't get anything close to something that I could call a cup or a bowl. And the one bowlish figure that I could create, it cracked. Sure, I cried, Takaro responds. So how do you keep making Clay works when you do, I asked. Oh, cry about this? And he waves at the work that I had sprawled out on the table. No, I don't cry about clay. You just make it again. It is a process, Joy. You need time to go through the process of making. Making again, breaking, looking at what you have, and try and get out some more. I thought you were going to be here every day and you have time to go through the process. I hope you will have a chance to go through the process of clay making because it is the process where you learn. No, I don't cry about clay. You mess up, you try again, he said. Once again, I received a Takerism. That is what I call the deep sayings from Takaro that I apply to my whole life, not just the clay making. And this very reason is why it was so sad to me. I received lessons about life, about my life. And who wants to leave something that feeds you in a way that you never knew? The first time I had papaya in Costa Rica, I had never tasted it before. And I never knew how much I loved it. And now it is one of my favorite fruits, a staple actually. Much like Takaro at STARworks. Who knew I needed a walking and talking metaphor dispenser to help me through tough places in my life that I never thought could soften up. Life is a process, and you do need time to reflect, observe, make mistakes, and keep trying. Yes, don't cry about leaving, I tell myself. Try again. Yes, grief is the point at which you mess up and you think that you may not have another chance, but you do. There was a lot of grief from my dad passing in 2014 to my mom coming to live with me, and I was okay with it at first. But after the first year, it quickly turned into 5, and I'm grieving what this might mean for my freedom. I know that sounds selfish. I know it does. But part of it is anger from having to do this intergenerational household thing without cultural support, nor the support from the 6 siblings that I have. There's a lot to grieve. And yet, Takaro's words of, it is a process, ring so true. When I feel like I make a mistake, I keep trying. And the sadness of my dad passing is all of the wonderful things that he taught me that I never did when he was alive, but now I'm doing them. And I love them all, from carpentry, to running a business, to gardening, to making bread, to being with family, to working with my hands. I love it all. And now, my mom brought clay to me. And while she can't enjoy it due to her health, I can. And I love the fact that I get to do this for both of us, while she is alive. Maybe I made a mistake by not doing these things that my dad wanted us to do when he was alive. But if that was a mistake, me doing those activities now is another way to experience a mistake, but I'm turning it into something else that has the same essence, but in a different form. I am learning and pouring into my mom, and clay allows me to experience the mistake that I might have made with my dad, to change it up into a different form, and clay has that healing property to it. Josh says it best, and I hope he's watching. There is so much grace that clay gives. Those words alone were so powerfully healing. So much grace that clay offers. Eric's words of encouragement brought attention to the time I was putting into my hand building task. We were talking about his upcoming work in Japan. You put in the time. My 10,000 hours have been hard pressed, and you get the outcomes you can certainly somewhat expect, he says to me. It's like the time you've put in, I would guess, into being compassionate. We talk at the kitchen table. Maybe. But Eric, I say back to him, shaking my head slightly, no one is paying me $20,000 to be compassionate. We both laugh. And on second thought, maybe I am being paid, just in ways that are not always calculated with a monetary value. I would have never met Takaro or even STARworks, the clay team, had it not been for my friend Jeremy, who casually asked me to do a video with his team about STARworks. I thought he was being nice by asking me, and since I love to learn and be around creative people, I agreed. I went to STARworks because Jeremy saw something that his video creativity needed that I had. I wrote a proposal for STARworks because Eric encouraged my mom and I to do something together because he saw something we could offer. My mom came to STARworks with me because I knew that she had always wanted to take classes in clay, and I wanted to make her dreams come true. And I met all of you because of all of that, and that is well over the value of $20,000. And more is yet to come. So Takaro's words, time is powerful because it ushered me into a space that I can learn to hold sadness of whatever I am grieving and also the excitement of what is to come. Time is time also brought me to the concept of time. Takaro didn't say it has been 3 months, nor did he say it is 5 o'clock, time to go home. He said time is time. The words are deeply spiritual for me, and inevitably, just like my proposal for the residency suggested, took me to a deeper spiritual place. But beyond studying the ancient civilization's use of clay, it took me to a particular beginning. A beginning where clay was the main technology. Much like the beginning of many creation stories I learned from Janie that night at the wood firing, people from all over the world have invested in learning about humans and creation and how creation came to be. Janie taught me the power of how people create their truths. In divinity school, I learned the oldest creation story thought recorded is the ancient Babylonian story of Enuma Elish, recorded on clay tablets, not on a Google document or an iPad. This creation story is very much thought to be linked to the creation story found in the Pentateuch, which are the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, of which Genesis is the most renowned. Genesis meaning the origin, the beginning. That is where time is time takes us. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What is incredible about this particular creation story or myth is that I believe. As mythical as it may be, this creation story helps me to connect to the dance that Eric so encouragingly led me to conceptualize. So I did. The Making of Eve is a title that came to me, a dance that incorporates the elements of Genesis 1:29. Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. I will do a dance for you that incorporates these elements in a fun way. And maybe you will hear and feel the connection.